The Rough Drafts podcast is sponsored by Unicorn.com, the world's premier esports betting site. Bet on your favorite games like CSGO, Dota 2, and League of Legends, and earn Unicoins through successful bets, or use Unicorn's exclusive Connect program, where you can earn Unicoins just by playing some of your favorite games. Use your earnings to enter Unicorn's raffles for exciting prizes like Logitech peripherals or CSGO skins. So join Chase and Walter and prove who really is the esports gambling expert. Unicorn.com. Log on today. Hello, Internet! This is the recently haircutted Walter Ceades Fedczuk, bringing you another edition of the Rough Drafts Guess the Lines podcast. It is week 3 of the European LCS. We had 8 games last week. We had 6 games the week before. We have 6 games this week. I really hate the European scheduling system. God, it is awful. It really irritates me. And sharing this irritation with me is my good friend and co-host, Chase, RedShirtKing, Wassenar. Chase, as a fellow degenerate gambler, you have to agree that this ping-ponging back and forth of how many games a week and the matchups and everything has gotta kind of curdle your gourd.
Look, group stages are the worst thing that might have ever happened to gambling, just because the way we get value is because we don't see these teams necessarily interact with each other within such a small period of time. So we have these groups now where we've seen these 5 teams permutate in almost every way possible. It's pretty clear now who is in what spot in the group. 7 out of 8 favorites won last week. The casinos are on top of these things. It's pretty clear where the power lies within the region, and I think that as we go forward, it's not going to be until we get intergroup play that things kind of deviate from there. But, who knows? We've got 6 games this week. It's a lighter week. We're going to keep alternating that way throughout the rest of the season, because even when we decide to give Europe best of 3s, we have to ensure they have fewer games in North America. That's just a thing Riot does. It's interesting. I'm not sure it's quite played out the way that we would have hoped, but we won't really know until weeks 8 through 10, where we get to see whether the closeness of these groups and these divides maybe come down as we move forward.
And to be fair here, the one underdog that won was Unicorns of Love over H2K. So
which we called on this podcast for the record.
I mean, let's be honest. That game honestly should have been even odds in and of itself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a second week of European League of Legends, and we did this last week, so Chase, I want to bring it up again so we make it a reoccurring sort of segment. Give me your high for the week. What made you feel good about last week in Europe?
Oh man, I'm so happy now that I've embraced the rainbow in my life. It adds a special sense of joy and wonder to my day that I would not have if I was just a Roccat fan like I was last split. I get to watch Xerxes do his Rumble thing. I get to see Zach pop off out of nowhere. I get to watch, he's just been a joy. I get to watch Exile do Exile things on Katarina. I get to watch Hylissang continue to, make big plays and somehow survive just long enough so that they can turn the big team fight around and win series off of it with that amazing Shen Stand United. It's one of those things where this was a huge series for them. They were playing against an H2K team that was a very good team in week 1 and still looked like a very good team this week. And Unicorns of Love rose to the occasion. They've proven that they can hang with the big guys, and now, sky's the limit for them. Their potential is certainly, finals contention, and I want to see if they can get there.
Absolutely, I'll point out. I love the Rumble. I love that people are playing Rumble Jungle. It is one of my guilty pleasures of picks to play so far, to the point that my friends don't want me to play it because they're like, yeah, you do damage, but you don't do anything else. And I'm like, I don't care. It's Rumble in the Jungle. It's amazing. I get to burn things. And the other point you made, Exile and Katarina. Mm-hmm. Exile is the only Katarina player that actually impresses me in the West. Like, we've seen Jensen's was pretty good. We've seen Bjergsen play it. Like, we've seen a bunch of other people, like, pick it up. Exile's been really the only one that I've, like, watched. And I've been like, this kid knows what he's doing on this champion. It doesn't feel like a, like... When Bjergsen picked it, it kind of felt like okay, I need to carry somehow. Let's pick Katarina. Let's see how this goes. Like, right. It really feels like Exile has a mastery of the champion. And I say the West because Faker knows how to play everything, and his Katarina games have looked, like, phenomenal. Yes. For me, we're gonna have a little bit of a disparity here, Chase, because for me, I'm pretty high on Misfits. I was higher than them, higher on them than you were in the off season. I felt pretty good about them, and despite the fact that in week 1 they were not the most impressive thing, I saw a lot to be excited about in their series against G2. We saw Alfari really, stand up to expect and say, I'm a better top laner than you. 9 times out of 10, there'll be that one game that Expect does look really, really good, where they put a lot of attention into him. I thought Kakao, not on the level of Trick, but it didn't look like he was that far behind. He still has a lot of moments where I'm kind of like, what is your pathing here? Why are you there? Like, I just weird things. Power of Evil has looked like the guy who played in the promotion tournament. He looks good. Like, yes. I'm actually impressed by him. He has gotten back to my, like, okay, you're a decent mid laner. I can deal with you being on this team. Hansama, I don't think we're gonna see the full extent of his abilities just in this meta. Unfortunately, this is not a very high mechanical meta. This is not a very high let me 1v1 outplay meta. It's Ashe and Jhin and Varus and Caitlyn.
Which is funny because he's still the most mentioned guy in my notes. He's been great.
He's been fantastic, but I think there's another level to him that we are not allowed to see in competitive play just because of the AD carry meta pool. Mm-hmm. When we get him on to Lucian, when we get him on to Vayne, you get him onto those kind of high mechanical, fight in lane kind of champions, that's really where he's going to shine. And I have to say, one of my candidates for MVP 2 weeks in is Ignar. Ignar is fabulous.
Yes.
He makes so many plays, and even with the limited playmaking potential of the AD carry position, he's like, I'm going to play Thresh and it doesn't matter. We'll still kill you at level 3. Like, hook, flay, done. Like, the amount of pressure that he's able to put on in laning phase with the meta champions, and even going to something like Thresh, which is popping up here and there, but he's not really, one of the core meta, every support plays this champion. And then just in team fights, the ability to roam around the map, he right now has been the thing that's making Misfits run and making all these pieces sort of fit together. And for every bad Kakao play, there's been an Ignar play that's been equally as good to sort of cancel that out. So I'm very excited to continue watching this team grow. Let's not forget, they're still a young team. They replaced 2 players in the offseason, so their stock is on the up for me. And with every up must come a down. Just like every brilliant Ignar play must have a terrible Kakao play. Chase, what was your terrible Kakao play of week 2?
Look, I understand that I only get to pull this card so many times a split, but as a Roccat fan, I get to say that this is a disappointing team. This is terrible. I hate this. I hate watching Faxi put out good games almost every game and just have it completely wasted. I hate seeing Maxlore have the gall to bring out Nocturne and then do nothing with it. I hate that Wadid at one point was leading the team in damage 30 minutes in. That's kind of insane. I hate that. You know what? I deserve every bad Hjarnan game that comes my way, because for years I told Vitality and every other team he played for, it's Hjarnan. He cleans up in team fights. It's not that bad. I don't know why people are complaining. Well, now he's my AD carry. I know why people were complaining. None of this is working. None of this is going the way that it's supposed to. And Grabs is really screwing up in pick and ban as well. And as much as I would love to say that I believe Roccat when they go into the Reddit comments and say, we're getting better every week, guys. We're just a few decisions away. No, you're not a few decisions away. You're a lot of decisions away. Every once in a while, you get lucky enough that it's only one or two bad ones that ruin everything. But this is not a good team. These are not good decisions. These are not cohesive plays. And it just breaks my heart. It's just ugly game after ugly game. And it's to the point where even social media hates us. It's like we haven't offended anybody. Who hates Roccat?
Your existence on the Rift is offensive to people.
Yeah.
And honestly, watching Roccat, I'm going to steal this from our friend Sean O'Connor from the Unicorns of Love International Fan Club.
Yeah.
Watching Roccat and watching the tower dive between Shen and Nocturne, it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. And then it falls off of a cliff into a nuclear power plant below. It was glorious. I think that just sums up Roccat as a whole. And one of the problems I have with Roccat is that who's their carry? Who's the number one guy? Who's the number one guy on this team?
Are you supposed to have one of those? Man.
Typically you are. Typically teams that don't have number one guys, they either breed one into a number one guy like the Boston Celtics, or they trade for another number one guy, kind of like the Boston Celtics getting Isaiah Thomas. Like at some point you look at your pieces and go, I need someone that I can hand the ball to in crunch time that's going to get me a win. And I love Betsy. He's not that guy. Maybe Faxi can be that guy, but it's so inconsistent that it's like, sure, you have that one 10-minute stretch of a game where he like scores 8 points and gets a steal and a block and 2 rebounds, and then the next minute he's tripping over the ball and his shoe comes untied and he like bashes his head into the truncheon that's holding up the basket. Like, and then the rest of the team is there's no carry on this team. There's no guy that I can definitively look to and go, this guy is going to be the guy, and this is what's going to go to my low point. Roccat and Vitality need to trade some players here. Because Vitality has too many people that can carry, and the too many knuckleheads theory is in full effect on Vitality. I don't care they 2-0'd Origin. Origin looked for like half of that series that they could win both of those games. Yeah. Let's not kid ourselves here. That was a bad win for Vitality. And to even criticize them further, Splyce gave them a beatdown of epic proportions. Quickshot was saying it. They're saying it on the broadcast. Vitality just gave up. Vitality rolled over and they didn't care whether they lost. They're like, It's disaffected French person accent. Like, they just didn't care. And I hate that out of competitors. I hate that. You should be fighting tooth and nail to the very last second. This is why we don't see surrenders anymore. Like, Riot didn't want to see surrenders, and both of those Splyce games probably would have been surrendered at the 25-minute mark if they could have. Vitality looks abysmal, and I am so disappointed in myself. I look back at past Walter, and I go back and I watch our EU prediction show, and I go, you poor fool. You poor idiotic fool. You had no idea. You had no idea that this wasp, this bee you thought was going to be terrorizing, is already dead. You sprayed it with Raid. Its hive is empty. It's just, I'm so disappointed in past Walter.
I mean, I'm still waiting for Nuke Duck to show a pulse. We'll start there, and then we'll try to move on towards actual good play from Vitality. You're not going to find an argument from me. I thought that was there was a great moment where it was Hachani versus Wisdom in the Who Could Die in the Dumbest Way competition, and that was entertaining. But it's not necessarily a positive sign when the most entertaining thing about your series is which one of you is going to screw up in the most hilarious fashion. That's just not a great sign moving forward.
Well, you know what else we screwed up, Chase? We screwed up last week in Europe.
Yeah.
So we took Unicorns of Love over H2K as a smart money bet. That was genius. That was intelligent. So we made $160 on that, and then we lost our two bets on Sunday. Remind me, why did we pick Orion and Roccat to both win their games?
We said it at the time too. You listened back and we said, this is probably a bad idea, but there's no value anywhere else, so we'll go with it. I don't know what you guys want from us. 7 out of 8 favorites won. You're not going to find value in that kind of situation. I guess maybe the answer is we just need to look for more 2-0s. I mean, that's just the way we're going to have to go. For now, I can at least say we made the money in North America. So hopefully you're listening to both episodes. Otherwise, we're going to try to come up with 2 bets for you out of these 6 games.
We're like $100 in the hole right now in Europe.
Well, we're $60. Only $60 after
60.
2 weeks, and we've gone 2-3 overall. That's not bad. Our wins have been good wins. We need a couple more underdogs to come through. It just is a shame that our underdogs are terrible teams as a general rule.
That's not going to happen, but I will say it seems like we're going to go into our first game of the week here. And I will say it does seem like the casinos are continuing to sort of not see Unicorns of Love as a viable threat. Hint, hint, hint. But Chase, when we look at this, Unicorns of Love had a fantastic week too. They beat up on Orion. Game 1 was a little closer than it should have been, but they beat up on them in Game 2. They showed that their late game decision making in macro can overcome sort of a weak early game. Kind of miserable early game, to be fair. They don't look good in the early game, and Wisdom was really able to get out ahead. But then the H2K series, we had one really good Unicorns of Love game, one really good H2K game, and then half of a really good H2K game. They got finished by half of a really good Unicorns of Love game. So I'm still impressed by them, and I thought that the tenacity that they showed in the third game of that H2K series was really impressive. So you already spoke a little bit about Unicorns of Love. How about we talk about Splyce then?
Yeah, I mean, look, as far as Unicorns of Love's early game goes, just to touch on that real quick, it's a problem. It's a concern. I think they get away with it because in the mid to late game, they have such decisive decision making. They see a play and they go for it and they never look back. And that's something that you're going to need against a team as good as Splyce is, because Splyce is a team that understands macro play. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't quite call this a bounce back week for Splyce. I think that's something that a lot of people are rushing to give them because we want to get Splyce back to where we saw them before. It's like, oh, well, see, they can beat, a team where they're fine. Everything's fine. I'm not so sure that everything is fine. I think that, I love Mordekaiser. I love good cheese, man. Gouda, cheddar. I'm all in. You can see me. I'm a big dude. Cheese it's delicious. But the thing about cheese is it's not really healthy for you. And it's not something that you can necessarily trust in the long run if you keep it out, out of the fridge for too long. I don't think that that's enough to convince me that Splyce is back. And game 1 was not necessarily a great game. They had a huge lead. They snowballed the landing phase, but it took them quite a while to close. Mm-hmm. And when you're having these issues closing, we point to that and we say, this is a team that doesn't quite understand where the macro is right now. They're not the ones that are making the decisions, or if they are making decisions, they're making rushed decisions. They're panicking and trying to take Barons before they absolutely need to, and not really focusing on the vision game as much. It's nerves, it's antsiness, and that's not what I want to see from a team that has to go up against such a tough opponent in Unicorns of Love, a team that seems to be firing on all cylinders when it comes to mid to late game decision making. This is going to be a really difficult matchup for Splyce. They're going to have to prove that they can do something different than we've seen basically all split from them, which, to be fair, is only 2 series. And this is the ultimate problem with Splyce, is that we don't really know how they perform against a super awesome team. They have, their 2 biggest, they have 2 big matchups this week that are going to give us a better idea of it. But beating Vitality, is that the thing that's going to bring us all back into the pasture? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to really prove it this week, and I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I agree with you that I don't think this immediately says, oh yeah, Splyce, they're one of the better teams in this group. I think we all knew that Unicorns of Love, H2K, and Splyce were going to be really beating on each other.
and that getting out of this group number one was going to be a big deal. It was going to be tough to do. We've had all three teams play against each other, in some sort of circle. We've had Splyce lose to H2K, and we've had H2K lose to Unicorns of Love. Mm-hmm. This, I think, is the moment where Unicorns of Love could potentially separate themselves. They play each other twice. So being up 1-0 in this series, in the season series already is going to be massive for them. And if they're up on both of these teams, then Unicorns of Love is almost a lock for, they've locked themselves into the playoffs, essentially. There's very few chances that other teams will be able to knock them off that perch. They'll be playing against the fourth team this week. This will be the end of the first kind of go round against every team in their group, and I think that's a big deal. If Unicorns of Love come out of this 4-0, that almost pencils it in. They're up 1-0 on everyone else. They're going to at least force a tiebreaker scenario for that 3 seed, and I think that seals it. Splyce, they really need this to try and keep up, because having that number 1 seed is going to be massive, because then you won't be playing against G2 in the semifinals. You won't have to play against G2 until the finals, which will be massively helpful. We always talk about 1 and 2 seeds on being on opposite sides of the bracket. So this is a very, very important game to Splyce, not only for the reasons you're saying, they beat Vitality, but they haven't beaten anyone of consequence. They get Orien later on in the week, which is probably more of a Vitality-esque, if they win, it's not all that impressive. Mm-hmm. If they play this series close, the Vitality series was an improvement. It shows that Splyce is improving compared to week 1. It is, makes me feel better about them. If they come out and against Unicorns of Love, they're scrappy. It's a 3-game series. All 3 games are sort of close. They have their moments. Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'll feel, it'll just be continuing my feelings for Splyce growing. As opposed to if they come out and they look like the team against H2K, then I'll be, severely, severely worried about this roster. Chase, I've seen the lines. Mm-hmm. So I'm severely, severely worried about Unicorn's algorithm and their ability to actually function as a gambling site. But where do you think the line is before I totally diminish any hopes that you have of making money this week?
Oh man, this is a great sign going into this. Well, look, I looked at it this way. Splyce are a team that I'd like to believe get back to where they were. They haven't shown me that they're that team yet. I really didn't like that they had to rely on that cheese to get through their series against Vitality. I think that Unicorns of Love should be the favorites in this game. They've shown that they are right now a top 2 team in Europe, and other teams are going to have to rise to their level if they're going to unseat them. I had it at Unicorns of Love minus 150 because I think it's still, people tend to give Unicorns of Love a little bit of a hard time. So I think that they're going to have to earn it. Oh, no.
Oh, you simpleton.
Oh,
you simple. Oh, they're if anybody was watching the Royal Rumble, AJ Styles and John Cena been fighting each other for the WWE World Championship. Last Monday, they had this tense back and forth mic battle against each other where John Cena called AJ Styles just some guy from Georgia. And Chase, you're just some guy from Georgia. I said Unicorns of Love minus 250. It's even.
Fine. Okay. I mean, we'll take...
Splyce and Unicorns of Love are even.
I'm not sure why you're so surprised by that line. I mean, I'll take the win.
One team is 3-0 and has looked incredible. The other team, not so much.
I mean, welcome to Unicorns of Love and gambling sites. There's something about whether it's just the brand or whether it's the chaos style that really just defined them early on.
They couldn't make them they couldn't choose. They can't make them underdogs, and they can't give me Splyce underdog odds to maybe pull off the give me an
Unicorns
underdog,
of Love and even
please.
Odds. That's a smart money bet. That's value all day. I can't believe that we're getting value on Unicorns of Love at all. They should be. They should be sizable favorites in this. Splyce hasn't beaten anyone good yet, and they did look great in their series in which they did win.
Even odds here means minus 114.
Yeah, I'll take minus 114 any day of the week with over the.
I can't make money
off
of that.
You made, oh, come on. We see, this is our problem when we go for nothing but value bets, is minus 114 stops looking like value. Anything under minus 150 for this game was
7 out of 8 favorites win, yeah, minus 114 does look like value. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It sucks. I wish they'd go one way or the other so I could at least actually have more value on one of them. But hey, whatever. That's their algorithm. Moving on. Fnatic versus Misfits. Again, Misfits are 2-1 in Group A. Fnatic are 1-1. They've only played one series. Misfits coming off of an encouraging week, I think, last week for me. Fnatic had some trouble with Giants. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
So, what about that matchup? So I look at it, I'm a little bit more worried about Fnatic here. So, why are those worries justified? Or am I just kind of like, am I just worrying too much about one loss to Giants?
I think you're worrying too much about one loss to Giants, especially the way that Giants won. It was very clearly a snowball.
Mm-hmm.
They just got going early. The Alawi was maybe a little bit ambitious from Ceades. If I was to criticize Fnatic, the two things I point to right off the top, it's Ceades and it's Amazing. The two guys that came from Origin that we had question marks about because they didn't look great there. It's been a bit of a mixed bag. Amazing still doesn't look like he's back up to full strength yet. I wouldn't say that he's blowing me away with anything he's doing in that regard. I think that Ceades has had some good games. He's had some bad games. He is Ceades. He is the epitome of you take what you get and you understand that there's going to be some bad with the good, and that's just the cost of doing business with Ceades. But the thing about Fnatic that gives me a lot of reason to be hopeful is that their macro play has been excellent. Their wave management, even in losses, was brilliant. They got pretty clearly snowballed by Giants in game one, but they were still even in towers because of how well they were pressuring waves and switching where they should be focusing and keeping Giants off their toes.
That's Ceades for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ceades, but it's also just understanding the game itself. You know, some of that's got to go to Reckless, who's, you know, been playing for forever and has looked great. Jez's has performed better than I expected. I really love what we're seeing from Caps. He looks like a guy that absolutely deserves to, you know, be in that.
So here's a pause. Here's a pause since you bring up Caps.
Okay.
Are we worried Baby Faker is going to pull an Eddie Curry?
No.
No?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. I like what I'm seeing from Caps as a general rule. I think that...
I don't like the nickname. I hear Baby something and I'm just like, oh boy. Yeah. I hope he doesn't show up to training camp 40 pounds overweight and can't run the length of the floor. Oh, God.
I mean, look, there's an attitude problem with him that everyone wants to pretend isn't happening. The guy, you know, he does the thing where he, like, recalls in front of the base over and over and starts spamming things inside. You know, it's all those kind of little BM things that when they kind of build up when you hear that, plus the stories of Off the Rift and the, you know, the Death Note meme about wanting, you know, I can end your career, you know, because I'm in the LCS. Like, it paints this picture of a guy who I would not necessarily trust if it wasn't the Fnatic system. I trust Fnatic to keep those kind of things in-house. That's what they do as an organization. They've managed to keep, you know, plenty of guys in their organization, you know, who had those kind of spots on their resume and do just fine with them. I think that Caps is going to be fine until further notice. I mean, I like what I'm seeing from him on the Rift, and that's all I can point to right now is that he was very consistent in the entire series. And even in the loss to Giants, he was the one putting pressure in the mid lane onto Knight, and Knight had to react and kind of counter what he was doing. So he's done a great job dictating the pace. And this is why I'm really excited for Fnatic, particularly in this series, because they are good at dictating the pace against a team in Misfits who I like to define as the anti-Unicorns of Love. Their whole goal is they get the 2016 Spring Vitality Award for being the most boring winning team to watch, because their whole plan is to wait until the enemy makes a mistake to make a decision. That's what they do. They have no play after the early game. That to close things out, it takes forever for them to finally make a move. And it was so easy for G2 to just neutralize them by saying, okay, we're going to make the early game as boring as possible. No kills, first 17 minutes, come up with a second way to beat us. And Misfits looked at that and said, see you next week. We're going home. There's no point here. We have no other plan. They either snowball the early game or they lose, which, when you're playing Giants or Roccat, that's fine. You're going to snowball the early game because those are bad teams as a general rule.
Okay.
But against G2, it was so easy to pick them apart. It took one game, and it was a game in which they gave away a LeBlanc, and LeBlanc got 5 kills in the first 10 minutes, and it still took 34 more minutes to close the game. It should have taken 34 whole minutes to close the game. How does this happen? How are you so bad at making simple macro decisions? But you know what? It's the plan. This is how the system is built. I've seen this before. They genuinely believe this is the gamble that they take. Unicorns of Love gamble on themselves and say, we're going to make all these decisions, and some of them are going to be bad decisions and they're not going to work, but as long as we're dictating the pace, we're going to make more good decisions than bad, and we're going to be a good team.
Correct.
Misfits will just sit back and assume at some point the enemy will make a mistake, and as long as they do, we will be able to take advantage of it. And teams that are as good at macro play as a G2 is, and as I think Fnatic is, at least when it comes to wave management and putting pressure on multiple lanes at the same time and really not giving away huge early game advantages, I find it hard to believe the Misfits is going to pull off the series. I think they can take one. I think that Fnatic's early game has enough holes in it where, Misfits will have a game where they're just so far ahead that it doesn't matter. But I don't see any sign that Misfits are going to win the mid to late game as it stands against a team as good as Fnatic is.
I agree with all those things. So Chase, where do you think the line is?
I have the line at Fnatic minus 180.
You're just a guy from Georgia. I had the line Fnatic minus 200. It's even.
What? Wait.
Even.
Wait.
We don't need to do the rest of the show. It's a 2-team teaser. Unicorns of Love Fnatic. That's all we have to do. We're done.
Hey.
Good night, everybody.
Yay.
I'm serious. It's even.
Look.
It's even.
I understand with Splyce and Unicorns of Love, right? We have trepidation about unicorns. We always have to, right? At least Ibix and Xerxes are young. And Splyce was really good last split. I can kind of see it. Like, if you look at it sideways, you kind of see it. I don't know what Misfits have done to earn that kind of respect. Shout out to them. I mean, we give the Unicorn so much crap for not adjusting for FlyQuest properly, but apparently they can adjust for Misfits just fine. So I don't know where this is coming from or what they're seeing that has them so convinced, but sure, let's give it a shot. I would love for Misfits to exceed my expectations.
No, Misfits isn't winning this series.
I don't think they are either, but look, I mean, I'm trying not to, again, there's something to be said about Ceades and Amazing have made mistakes. If they have a sloppy series, I think Misfits are good enough to take advantage of it. I really like what Power of Evil and Ignar are doing. They can make some plays. That's a weird line. I think that's safe to say. We should move forward.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So Chase is up 2-0 on me because of 2 awful even lines. Awful. just awful. Speaking of awful, Vitality versus H2K.
Okay.
Speaking of awful.
Yeah.
Vitality's pretty awful.
It's not
as
good.
A whole. Individually, they're all talented players. Individually, they're all talented players.
I'm done with this whole Cabashard and Nuke Duck thing. I don't know if I don't know when the last time they were really good.
That's what I'm gonna say. Individually, they're all exceptionally talented players, and none of it works together. None of it.
I'm not sure
Period.
individually though. Like, what is Nuke Duck doing for this team? What is Nuke Duck actively doing in a game situation to advance his team's win condition? I don't know. I can't come up with
signing
anything.
into the client and being a fifth body.
I guess that's something. But it is a bad sign when people are making jokes about, man, Senkux's ghost Katarina did more damage than Nuke Duck's actual Katarina, and I had to look it up because I wasn't sure if it was a joke. I genuinely had to double check and make sure that wasn't the case. To which I said, this is a lot closer than it should have been. This is way closer than it should be. I shouldn't have to ask these questions. I mean, look, Hachani just looks bad. His positioning is terrible. He has a couple plays and every once in a while he'll do something kind of interesting in lane, but I mean, just anytime he goes to ward, you just assume that there's a 50-50 shot he doesn't come back. Joko had one good game so far this whole split, and it was against Origin, and it was all right. That's not really filling me with a ton of confidence.
Yeah, that's true.
And Kabashard, I don't know when Kabashard, made this switch, and I think he did it so quietly that we didn't notice, but when was the last time Kabashard was really good? And I don't mean like, he had an okay game here and there. I mean like game in, game out, you had to be afraid of what Kabashard was doing.
Fiora, Darius, Jax meta.
Yeah.
Like last spring, yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Last spring regular season, when they hit the playoffs, he was off.
Yeah. I mean, this is Steelback versus the World right now, and look. I was watching the Steelback versus the World team last split. It's not where you want to be, guys. It's not as much fun as it looks, and it doesn't look.
Steelback is going Cabo Shard. Oh crap! It's not Cabo Shard. It's freaking. What was his name? I don't even remember his top lane. Parang. Oh, Kabashard takes off his mask. It's really Parang underneath. Hachani is Raze.
My God, that's Raze's music. Yeah,
it's Rockhead all over again.
God,
this is a bad team.
No, I don't feel badly for Steelback though. He signed that contract with Vitality before any other moves were locked in.
Yep.
This is what you get, man. I mean, you get what you signed for. H2K on the other hand,
I'd rather talk about H2K.
Yeah, they're getting exactly what they signed up for, which is a really fun team. It's one of those things where they played a very good Unicorns of Love team. I thought both teams played very well. I think it's the best series we've seen in Europe to date. I think that Jankos, when he's kept down, it really affects their pace of play. They really love to play while ahead. When they're ahead, they'll make a ton of decisions and they'll start picking fights and ganking heavily and really trying to snowball these leads. They're very good at playing with a lead.
Yes.
Playing from behind is much more of a mixed bag. Their wave management is very solid. It's the kind of macro decisions that you're looking for as a baseline of a good team. If you really want to tell the difference between a good team and a bad team, look at wave management. Good teams know how to make sure all three lanes are moving in the way they want, and bad teams, it's kind of slapdash all over the place. Just fun, little thing to note for when you're watching this week. They do all the things that you want them to do. Their team fighting just wasn't as good as Unicorns of Love. That's not going to matter against Vitality, mind you. Vitality's team fighting is way, way worse than anything H2K was putting out there.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about, Odoamne has gotten a little bit greedy. His teleports haven't been exactly what they need to be. I think that Jankos can be kept down. I think it's very hard to do, but we've now seen that it can happen.
Yeah, but Joko's not going to do that.
But Joko's not the guy to do that.
And GBM sure as heck isn't going to do that.
Oh my God. It kind of has to happen at some point.
Can we say Jankos is the single most important person on H2K?
Yes.
Okay.
And for the record, I'm saying that with the knowledge that Forbidden has played significantly better than he did last split.
Yes, yeah.
I really like what I'm seeing from Forbidden.
But Jankos is their primary carry.
And he is the guy that dictates the entire pace of the game for them. When he is ahead, they are aggressive and they keep being ahead. When they are behind, they feel a need to kind of retract within themselves, and then they are at the mercy of whoever does want to dictate the pace. Yeah. And these are the mid to late game issues that we've noted for H2K for a while now. But they're clearly doing enough with putting Jankos in an ability where he can more often than not be dictating the pace of the game. They know who they should be playing through, and I think they've done a very good job of balancing the resources accordingly. It's just a balanced team that should completely smack around a team like Vitality. I have the line at -400.
Would you say it's nuclearly?
You
said H2K -400. I said H2K -450. It is H2K -312.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
a little lower than I thought. What's the line for Vitality there?
I guess it's interesting. Vitality is +225.
What are the odds that H2K gets a 2-0? I hate to do this to you on
Plus
the spot.
115.
Plus 115?
Plus 115.
That's something I might want to come back to.
Yeah, that's we were looking at it and I was like, that might be a 2-0 series. Plus 115.
It should be a 2-0 series. Unless H2K outplay themselves, this should be a 2-0.
Here's the thing, though. We've already done 2 2-0s this year, and they haven't panned out.
Shh. That happened in NA. They don't know about it.
No, I mean, we've done 2 2-0s, and they haven't panned out yet. So I want to breathe some caution on us going 2-0. Do we really need to talk about Giants G2? Is there anything we want to talk about here?
One of these is a League of Legends team, and the other is Giants Gaming. I don't know, man. I want to say one thing, and I have to read this out. I did this last week, but when there's a truly wonderful play, I have to make note of it. Knight at the 10th minute in Game 3 against Fnatic. He has this incredible escape at the 10th minute. He's caught in the jungle, flashes over I believe it was the Raptor wall, and then ults in the opposite direction in order to make an escape as Talia. It was a pure, Allen Iverson breaking your ankles kind of play. I loved everything about it. He's shown a lot of cleverness.
That's a great comparison.
Yeah, he's really.
I was gonna say Melo on the 03 to 06 Melo on the Nuggets, where it's just him and no one else around him. But I like the Iverson comparison better.
Yeah,
I really like that one.
And it's Iverson to the full extent of, we play through him or bust, which is funny because I actually like what Memento's been doing. For whatever reason, we've just decided he gets all the Baron steals, just all of them. You can have them. No one else is going to try to prevent you from stealing these Barons, Memento. I don't know how you have 4 of them within 2
Hustlin is turning into his Jalen Rose.
Oh, God. His positioning is really concerning to me.
Man, if they ever...
was very concerning to me. Hiku's decision to Realm Warp was pretty interesting to me.
Hiku has... Not a lot of brain cells. His decision making is pretty horrendous.
I genuinely couldn't tell if that was an accident or not. I'd like to believe that it was.
I'd like to believe it was an accident. I would like to believe that we're not going to gamble on this game. But Chase, where do you think the line is? 600. Yeah, G2 minus 500. You're just a guy from Georgia. It's G2 minus 1,000.
Oh boy, yeah, we're not even playing anymore. No need to pretend.
Yeah, no need to pretend. That's Giants at plus 550. I'm not interested.
No, I'm not even I know this is my job to watch games and everything, but that's gonna be rough. This is the only thing that would be worse is G2 Roccat. Oh wait, I already saw that. It was as bad as I thought it would be. Let's just move on.
Orion versus Splyce.
Yes.
Orion is I feel like they're one good call away from beating someone.
Sure. I appreciate your optimism, man.
There's just something about him. The early game is pretty solid. Wisdom is pretty good. Tabs has his moments where it's all of a sudden that's right. He was actually a good AD carry for 3 weeks. Okay, I'm back in the Alliance days. Okay, I mean, Sartorius is pretty good.
Full, man. It's 1/16 full. We've got that going for us.
Sartorius is pretty good. I mean, when are we getting Peke? When are we getting Peke? We know Peke is going to start in the mid lane. When is Nahud getting benched?
Give it a week or two. We're very close.
I don't think week 4.
I don't think this week is going to happen, but I think week 5. I think week 5 start seeing XP
when they start playing against the other group.
Yeah, because right now they could just say hey, we're in a tough group and it's early on and we're still figuring things out. But if they get into the other group and they lose to someone like a Giants or a Roccat, they're gonna come back down to earth and realize exactly how bad things are. And for the record, they're really bad. Say what you will about Sartorius and him being all right early, late game. He has been a concern, and let's face it, several of their losses have come from the fact that Sartorius tends to overextend. He's very confident in lane. They like to play through him as far as, where they like to draft, what they like to first pick. They first picked a Jace this week, which I mean, I didn't do my bad coaching decisions, but that one was a little questionable. That one was not so ideal, we'll say. And I didn't
we'll agree to disagree on that. Jason's a very, very strong champion right now.
Hasn't really worked out in the games that I've seen, at least in Europe. It has not translated into success the way that people are telling me that it should. But he's had serious positioning issues. Wisdom has incredibly serious positioning issues. I have no idea what he's doing half the time on his ganks. I think maybe he just likes the color gray a lot. That's the closest thing I can come to of an understanding. Hiva is not an LCS support. Tabs is barely an LCS AD carry. Nahyun is 0-23 in competitive play, and I'm pretty sure he can't play Cassiopeia based on a lot of their pick and ban. I don't know what you want from me or this team. This is an 0-6 team. They are the only team left in Europe or North America that has yet to win a single map, and there's a good reason for it. And if ever there was a team that Splyce, needs a bounce back win, let's get it going, Origin's the team you want to play in this situation. They are a bad team. They are a really ugly, really bad decisions, just not fun team to watch.
Yeah, and
let's get to 0-25, guys. Let's do it.
Unfortunately for XPeke, this team is not, in fact, the best a man can get, referencing his new Gillette sponsorship. Chase, where do you think the line is?
Well, first of all, I like that we breezed by the fact that I've officially won the week because I'm 4-0 right now. I love that.
You are 4-0, that's right.
Yeah,
you're
4-0. minus 400.
Yeah, you're gonna go 5-0.
Yay!
This is 5-0. I said Splyce minus 333. It is Splyce minus 500.
As it should be.
Just
Origin plus what?
Origin is plus 330.
Okay.
And the Splyce, they're favorites to 2-0.
Yeah, no, there's no value here.
There's no value.
But there was never going to be. Splyce should be that favorited, even if they're the team that they, a severely flawed team that just happens to, know enough in order to beat a team like Vitality. That's going to be more than enough to beat Origin. They understand the macro game. Origin doesn't yet, and it's very hard to win games when you don't know how to play to a win condition. That's just it's a hard way to go. I would recommend not doing it that way.
I would recommend not doing it too. And finally, the sixth game. I hate the scheduling, Chase. I hate it. Yeah. And now they're doing European Challenger Sunday mornings, so I really hate this. And something else that I hate is watching Roccat play video games. It's awful. They have ruined the one thing I liked about their team in Betsy. And I just can't watch it anymore. And they're against Fnatic. So I'm gonna drag the hopeful Roccat fan out of you one more time. What would Roccat have to do to win this series?
If Betsy had better than a 2.0 KDA, that would be nice. Currently only better than Senkux and Nahyun. So that's not ideal from your, main carry on the team. If you're gonna make a case for Roccat and some upside,
you are gonna make a case for Roccat. You're about to.
Let's believe in the process for a moment here. Let's trust the process. Faxi is a good top laner. A lot of raw talent there. Ceades is a guy who can make mistakes because he is so aggressive and ambitious in a lot of his choices. So if there's a chance you play around that. Betsy almost has to improve from here. Hjarnan has shown that he can play well at times. Sure, it was a Sivir comp, and you have to put in the link meme, just a Sivir comp here. You hit R and you win, guys. But I'll say this, shout out to Grabs. He understood that they had lost a game to Giants of all people and said, look, guys, we need to return to basics here. What's the most basic way we can play the game? Sivir and Karma. Perfect. You got speed on speed, just run around the map, pressure out your lane, win the game. This is something that Turkish challenger teams can do. Like, I would expect Roccat to be able to do it. That's just the level 1 of being a competitive team.
And to be fair, folks, Chase would know all about challenger Turkish teams.
Yeah, that's true. I
know all about them.
I make these specific references for a reason. I was a coach there. But yeah, it's it's rough. I'm not sure what they do outside of that's going to work out very well. Wadded isn't doing anything that Raze didn't do, which is concerning because Raze did a lot of not so great things.
He's streaming and he's communicating with fans.
That's true. And look,
he's very personable.
Wadded. He's got a great sense of humor about the whole thing.
He's this year's Mighty Bear.
That's really not helping, man. I don't think I deserved that. I don't think I deserved to have my heart gut punched like that right there.
I gotta gut punch you here because I can't gut punch you the other way. That's just not nice.
That's totally fair. Maxlore has disappointed. I think that's something that Roccat fans.
Who won that trade between Giants and Roccat?
Giants won.
Okay.
Giants won easy, and I don't know how because Memento has stolen 4 Barons in 2 weeks. He's only played 3 series, and I don't know where this is coming from because he didn't do crap on Roccat. Like, did you see this potential? I certainly didn't. I would never have defined Memento by his playmaking capabilities.
To be fair, I didn't think Roccat would be here this split either. So,
God, it is just. I mean, you trust the process. Trust the process. Maybe team fights get better. I hate everything about this, and Fnatic has got to look at this as a win that a must win in order to keep pace in Group A, and I think they're going to take care of business.
Okay. What do you think the line is? Let's end your suffering.
I have Fnatic at -333. It's just probably too low.
Yeah, guess what? I had Fnatic at -400, and Roccat lets you down once again. You don't get the sweep this week. It's Fnatic -500.
That's fair.
No sweep. I stave it off. So Chase.
That's Roccat plus 330 then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Stay away. No, once again, it's the last day of games of the week for Europe that they just say, let's throw our
They're competing against NA. Like, it's fair. I understand it. So what are our smart money bets going to be?
Well, I think that we would be silly to not take Fnatic over Misfits.
Okay.
I think that has to happen.
Okay. I agree. Do you want a 2-team tease that with Unicorns of Love over Splyce?
Oh, are we doing a teaser?
We could do a teaser.
What are the odds if we tease this?
Let me take a look right now. The odds if we tease it. Plus 250.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
I like that a lot too.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to do that.
Because we're struggling with 2-0, so let's add teasers into this. Because that's really... And by the way, we should explain for people who are newer to the pod, we've explained most betting things, but teasers are kind of a newer concept. Teasers are the idea that you bet that both things are going to happen. In a 2-team teaser, all 3 or 4, however many multi-bets you want, you can add as many different conditions essentially, and the more conditions you add, obviously it's the less likely that you're going to get all of them right, but also you get more value out of it. So we are betting on 2 guys that otherwise are considered even bets, 50-50 shots according to the casinos, but we get plus 250 value if both of them come through.
We think is much higher odds that it's going to happen than 50-50.
Yeah, we think both of those games are, I would say, about 70-30 matches. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah. I would say that Unicorns versus Splyce might be like 60-40, 65-35. Like, it's a little closer, but
mileage depending on how much you really enjoy what Misfits did last week. That's really what it comes down to. Or how much you count on Splyce, I should say.
Yeah.
Coming back.
Honestly, both.
From what they did. Yeah, both. I mean, but I think those are both fine. And I think H2K getting 2-0. The 2-0 over Vitality is also a good bet. And I think those are the 2 we're going to stick to.
And we'll be done with Europe on Friday. There we go. No reason to watch the other 3 games because there is no value to be had if you're a degenerate gambler like Chase and myself. After that first series on Friday, you're all done. Go and enjoy North America. The games are a lot better. That's right. I said it.
Oh, man. Controversial opinion.
And you know what? You know what else I'm going to say? That's been a podcast. And Chase is just a guy from Georgia. And if you want to talk to either of us, I'm the champ. I'm the guy that runs the place. I'm the John Cena of this podcast. You can follow me at Ceades_LOL. Chase, George boy, where can they find you?
Look, I'm an Atlanta boy this week because I got my Falcons going to the Super Bowl. We're rising up. We're in brotherhood together. So you guys can follow me and celebrate that side of things, and just talk about a whole bunch of European League of Legends, anything you liked from this particular episode at RedShirtKing. And also shout out to Deathstar _LOL on Twitter, the only guy I know who freaks out as he watches live as much as I do. And also for the I brought up a comment about you messing with me when it comes to Roccat things, and he said, quote, he trolls you every time I watch your podcasts, which he understands what this podcast is about, and I appreciate that. So shout out to you, Deathstar.
I have to make you miserable about Roccat, and I have to make you miserable about one more thing. I can't remember if it was Edelman or if it was Hogan, but when asked who would win in a fight between a Patriot and a Falcon, his response was, well, we have muskets, don't we? Until next week, goodbye, Internet. Hey there, Ceades here. Thanks for checking out the podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, consider supporting us at www.patreon.com/roughdraftspod. For just $1 a month, you can join your fellow listeners in our patron-only Discord channel and help keep the content coming, or join our VIP club where $1 a show or $8 a month gets you first priority on all patron content like our patron-only Q&As. And check us out on all of our social media, Twitter @RoughDraftsPod, Facebook.com/RoughDraftsPod, SoundCloud.com/esportsroughdrafts, as well as on iTunes and YouTube by just searching for the Rough Drafts Podcast. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, Internet.